please respond with a here when I call out their name. Commissioner Duggan?
Here.
Commissioner Lysak?
Here.
Commissioner Sanders?
Here.
Oh, we have someone online?
Okay, we're good to go.
Wonderful. Next, we'll have our reports by the Chief Executive Officer and management staff.
Well, good evening, President Fisher and Commissioners. A few remarks and we'll turn over to Justin Dyke, who will present today's director's report. I'm going to give you a quick update on I'll use this until we get another one up here. Problem. So you'll likely remember that the County Board of Commissioners sent you a letter regarding a proposed footpath near the district's Taylor's Ferry Reservoir in our Metzger service area. In fact, Commissioner Fisher and I met with County Commissioner Snyder to discuss the reasonable roll forward. Earlier this week, Commissioner Fisher and I had a conversation and thought that the best path forward for us was for next week, or next month rather, at the work session. At the April 7th work session, I believe it's on the 7th. I'll bring 2 letters for you to discuss as an organization that would be a response potentially to the county commissioner's proposal. So we'll bring 2 letters and give you a chance to discuss that at the work session to see how we want to respond with to the county's letter. Earlier, last week actually, is the JWC chair, Commissioner Sanders, accepted a ceremonial check from for the disinfection project at the JWC. This regional effort, which was a collaboration between all the JWC partners, resulted in a grant of just over $1 million. Representative Bonamici was there to present the check, and you see the picture have coming up here on the next slide. We hope that this grant will be combined with a separate FEMA grant to improve the resilience of the JWC water supply. So we've applied for a FEMA grant under the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program and hope to see that similarly fund the program. Here's a picture. Apologize that we actually missed the mayor of Forest Grove, who's on the right-hand side, just to the right of Mayor Beatty. But pictured here, we have JWC, or actually Hillsborough Utilities Commission, Mr. Dave Judah. We have our President Fisher. We have Representative Bonamici, our very own JWC chair and vice president of our board, Commissioner Sanders, Mayor Beach Pace, and then Mayor Lacey Beatty. And again, apologize for missing the Forest Grove mayor. I was apparently the photographer who took the picture without the skills necessary to pull that one off. Give you a quick update on progress we've made on the Metzger Pipeline East, and if you have questions, Pete's prepared to answer those if they do come up. So we have put this in interim use, and of course that's been our strategy all along, is to put as many of our pipelines that we build into interim use. And so that continues with the Metzger Pipeline East segment. We're talking about the part from Beaverton Hillsdale Highway down to Fano Creek. Now, if we think about that segment, normally the water is actually going to be coming north through that segment, But right now we have water from Portland actually being delivered through that MPE pipeline on the interim basis. And that'll help condition the pipe and prepare for the eventual placement in service. So that portion of the MPE pipeline is being flushed and disinfected in coordination with Clean Water Services. We need to discharge that to the sanitary sewer system, and we've been working closely with Clean Water Services to accommodate that. We need to balance the need for us to get the water out of the pipe, as well as the hydraulic constraints that they have in their collection system all the way to the treatment plant. So the water quality samples will be analyzed before introducing the water into our distribution system to make sure it meets all of our potable water standards. And in fact, today I think we got one of the tests back, and Pete, it came back clear. So we had one of our standard tests that we would do came back, I think 10 or 11 this morning, that it's clear. So we have one more test that will be tomorrow. So interim use on the MP pipeline to that Metzger pressure and flow control facility. That's the new facility we built there on Hull Boulevard by Hobby Lobby. Supports the system integration. And what it does is reduce the amount of work that we need to do, that we need to complete when we move into the commissioning startup phase on the WWSS. So we're getting ahead of the game. Yes, sir.
This might be easier answered by Pete and Dave, but will the system run long enough with the chloramine in it to show us what happens when we switch from chloramine to chlorine? Or is it just not
Yes.
long enough? 'Cause it's only going to be,
I'll take a guess at that one of those two gentlemen would be in a better position to answer. Yeah, you're at Dave.
No. So with a chloraminated water, especially over long distance, you'll get a biofilm that's accommodating to the chloramines, but we're not going to be in that mode of operation long enough for that to establish.
So thank you, Dave. Any other questions on this? This is really important, and Pete's team's been out there putting these into use, using all the creativity they can muster to make these systems work in a way that's going to help us get ahead of the game when we get to the commissioning startup of the entire facility by getting those facilities conditioned. So we're excited to see this as we get closer and closer to the commissioning. Pete, do you want to add anything beyond what I said there?
No, you covered it well. Be happy to answer any other questions.
I'm just real proud of the work that those folks have been doing to make this happen. It's really excellent work for our customers. Quick update on the summer water availability. It's variable. In fact, maybe this is a little bit out of date with some of the recent rains that we've had, but just to let you know, everything's looking good for summer supply. Barney Reservoir is full, and that's our primary source of raw water that we take to the JWC plant when we can't take water off the river, when the water masters makes us use stored water. Scoggins is tracking closely to the rule curve. So the Scoggins Reservoir has a flood control mission as well as a municipal water and, in fact, irrigation role. So they have a rule curve and it's close to the rule curve. Portland's Bull Run system is also in great shape. That system can fill very quickly. In fact, last fall it did. So a lot of good water there at the Bull Run system. Water year precipitation remains below average. This may be a little bit out of date because in some areas in the Willamette Valley, it's actually, we're no longer below average, but I think overall in the state, we are below average, but our storage conditions are stable. So overall, the stored water conditions, we find them to be favorable as we head into the summer irrigation season. So we shouldn't have any need for curtailment unless something unusual happens, fire or power outages or something of that nature. So with that, I'll turn over to Justin Dyke, who will present tonight's director's report.
Before I advance to my regular content, I would like to commend Paul's photography. By what I can tell, he's been published in the Pamplin paper as that photo that you saw. You'll see in the Thursday memo is one of the attachments in the media report this week. From what everything I can tell, that appears to be Paul's photo. So he is a published photographer in our minds now. All right, I want to do a quick update on the community participation organizations. These are some of the county-led groups, especially for those in urban, unincorporated, and rural parts of the county. They'll be going through some substantial changes, and that does affect, in some capacities, how we engage with some of our customers and some of those opportunities. So a brief history, for about 40 years now, this county has been divided up into groups of community-led, volunteer-led engagement opportunities held monthly, often in person up until the year 2020. Then they went to virtual and now hybrid. These monthly community meetings are with representatives of Washington County and various service providers. Topics range from everything from police and fire, parks, recreation, roads, transportation, emergency disaster, all sorts of other things. Often they have had a land use component for the land use hearings and review processes. Developers, other community groups have come to them to talk about land use changes. We as a district have gone to many of the CPOs, not only for our ongoing regular community engagement, but also when we do a major capital project to use it as a component of our land use outreach and pre-construction outreach activities. There are 14 of them in the current CPO program around the county. And unfortunately, attendance has dropped off quite rapidly in the last couple of years. So a bit of a side-by-side, the current program, 14 CPO community participation organizations. The district attends about 6 every month. That fluctuates a bit. We've attended additional CPOs outside of our service territory during the early construction of the Willamette piping with Dave Kraska and some of his staff members, depending on if we're going through Tile Flat or Clark Hill Roads and reviewing different alternative pipeline routes and so forth. Sometimes CPOs gather together in multiple groups, so we end up attending different audiences, but on the average, we're about 6 a month for our team. They're volunteer-led with Washington County staff assistants, and the agendas are set by those volunteer CPO leaders. Because of the volunteer organization, the volunteer structure, as the county says to us, that creates a bit of a limited inclusiveness, and they do tend to be resource intensive for county staff. The CPO program, as it's proposed to restart at the end of this summer or early fall of 2026, would be 4 CPOs lined up with the county commissioner districts. The way we look at that map, we see 2 of them that would be in the TVWD service area, and those meetings would be held bi-monthly. So our commitment to staff time goes down, but also then, unfortunately, the opportunities for engagement with some of these community members does go down proportionally. The focus would be now led on the county services. So that's your LUT and other services the county wants to prioritize, but they do tell us that service providers will have an active role. We expect the new version of the CPO program and its new name to be unrolled to us in August or so, with a September launch to the new program. Typically, CPOs take a summer break. Not all of them do. Most of those that serve the district, I know the ones that I go to monthly, take summer vacation, June, July-ish. Folks are out of town. The CPOs will proactively cancel some of those monthly meetings. So that's why we, as we see it from the county staff, the new variant of the program will launch in September. So what does this mean for us doing community outreach work? We have a meeting next month, or I should say probably in 2 weeks or so, with the current CPO staff to get a little bit more of an insider's view of what does the new program have to offer and where can service providers contribute in a way that's positive, it's regular, and it's reoccurring. We also have had a really great relationship developed with the Washington County Sheriff Office and their outreach folks through the CPO program. We do a lot of events in the summers with them, and we see them every month at the CPOs, and we have a very common understanding of the way the CPO program is going to change in the future. And we have a shared goal that we would like to participate as much as we can, find the right role for our agencies, and then explore other additional, maybe non-CPO outreach opportunities now that we have some of the staff availability freed up monthly from the reduction. We also are meeting with some select community members around the area who are seeking further civic engagement through alternative means. So we've met with a few folks on the north side of the district already who are seeking additional levels of engagement with agencies like TVWD, CWS, or sheriffs and so forth with that in mind. And to the extent that we can accommodate additional community groups, we would like to, as long as we can make it fit with our schedules and our commitments and things like that. We see opportunities for engagement as a positive thing. We will continue to participate in the current CPO structure until it ends. I have a meeting tomorrow night with CPO 3, I believe it is, and I think there's one or two more. Most of them have wrapped up now. So this is really at the tail end of the current program structure. And we will adjust our summer and fall outreach plans to take into consideration what other opportunities, whether that could be more concerts in the park or other type of events with THPRD. Now that the CPO schedule has alleviated some of those evenings and weekends for our team, any other opportunities that we can see that fit a need to work and interact with our community and answer questions, we will be pursuing them as long as we can demonstrate that there's a value to the district and our customers for our attendance. With that, happy to answer any questions. I know Commissioner Duggan, you've been active in these for a while as well. I believe I've seen each of you commissioners at these meetings. So this is definitely a change to the outreach program that you're used to.
Thank you, Justin, for that summary of the plan transition here and anticipated changes in the county. I'm glad to hear that actively participating with the staff and figuring out how to keep that engagement going. I think it has been very positive for the most part, but since the pandemic, you're right, the engagement has really dropped off, and at least from what I've seen in terms of the number of attendees that show up, but appreciative of it. So thank you.
I appreciate that. I definitely see that sentiment with the community. Pre-pandemic, I attended CPO 6, the Aloha Reeville area monthly. That room, we could pack 60 people in the TVF&R fire station off Blanton near 209th there. And quite honestly, even once they came back to in-person services, that room wouldn't fill up more than 10 people now. I think CPO 6 was meeting at the Aloha Library for a while. Frank has been attending those lately. Maybe 10 people or less. The ones I've done virtually recently, I counted last week, 8 service provider staff members and 2 members of the public. So attendance is at its bare minimum. It's unfortunate in many regards, but it gives us an opportunity to use the time that we set aside for this engagement and find other opportunities where we can find maybe more dedicated or more thriving community groups to engage with throughout our district, while still participating in what the future CPO program looks like. Thank you.
So President Fisher, that concludes the reports to the Chief Executive Officer and Management Staff.
We will now move into Commissioner Communications with reports of meetings attended. So we'll start with Commissioner Duggan.
Hey, on February 25th, I attended the Metro Impact meeting where they discussed the future visioning process and industrial lands policy for region. On the 2nd of March, I met with CEO Paul Matthews for our monthly check-in. On the 3rd, attended our board work session. On the 9th, I attended the Washington County Public Affairs Forum where Shireen Ferrari of the city of Beaverton gave a presentation on the CERT program, emergency prep. On the 10th, I attended the last Washington County CPO #1 meeting where they had a candidates forum to hear from all the folks running for office for May election, and then tonight's meeting.
Commissioner Lysak.
On the 12th, I attended a meeting with CEO Matthews for our monthly touch base and tonight's meeting.
Commissioner Sanders.
Miss Commissioner Doan. On the 3rd, the monthly work session. On the 5th, you and I met with Paul over the agenda planning meeting. Paul showed the picture from the 9th from the JWC celebration, which did include the mayor of Forest Grove as well. And we didn't mean not to include her in the picture, but there were too many people for the frame. Well, I'm not blaming it on the photographer. There was a lot of people in the frame. And then on the 12th, met with the CEO one-on-one, and then tonight's meeting. So I didn't have any meetings with any of our outside relationships this month. Everything was internal.
Aside from those meetings already mentioned, on the 24th February, I attended a virtual town hall with Congresswoman Bonamici to hear updates, what's going on at the federal level. Then on the 25th, CEO Matthews and I met with Washington County Commissioner Jason Snyder about the Taylor's Ferry and the trail issue. And then on the 4th of March, I attended a AWA microplastics regulatory update session. And then on the 11th, I heard from AWA's federal legislative team on updates about policy going on at the federal level. And then on the 17th, I had my monthly meeting with the CEO, and then tonight's meeting. Topics to be raised by commissioners. Move to public comment. Sam, are there any members of the public wishing to make public comment?
I believe we actually do have one member on our virtual meeting. Deanna, if you wish to comment, now is the time to do so. It looks like you're unmuted, so you can go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
You can.
Oh, great, thank you. So thank you everyone for this opportunity to speak. I just had some comments to make. I kind of logged into my bill today and I noticed, of course, it's past due. And then when you go to the bill assistance, portion of your website, it goes stressed out about your past due bill. And ironically, I am. One of the things I had an epiphany this morning while I was trying to pay the bill. You guys offer the 20% discount, which I've mentioned in many other meetings. The 2024 rates increased 20%, and then that same month, you guys offered that 20% low income discount. The epiphany I had this morning was, wait, we just had 2 more rate increases approved, that 4% for this year, or actually last year, and then another 4% for this year, which is basically cutting into that 20% low income discount that you guys are actually offering. I just kind of wanted to find out if there are any planned discussions to increase that emergency assistance or customer assistance for customers. I've had the opportunity, as I've mentioned before, to kind of compare water bills and sewer bills against Multnomah County, where all my family live, and they're elderly, and I pay their bills too. But I noticed, of course, with Washington County, we're all kind of hit with base fees of a water-based fee and a sewer-based fee compared to Portland, which only has 1 base fee. I get it. But I do wish that the discount bill assistance program was increased to assist low-income households and to kind of keep up with your rate increases as well. Secondly, I tried attending the Willamette Water Supply meeting last month, and I know the agenda wasn't a hyperlink, or maybe it was just a call-in. I don't know, maybe if we could maybe send out maybe an email like a week or 2 before those Willamette meetings occur, so people can actually participate. And then I noticed, of course, the comments, you have to submit your request for public comments 48 hours in advance of the meeting. Just kind of maybe a heads up to see if we can maybe get that on the calendar so people that have questions can get them, answered, and of course follow the guidelines of making a request 48 hours before like the February 5th meeting actually occurs. I do have other questions, like, are we going to be buying water from the city of Wilsonville in bulk, or do we have our own pipes? I mean, I have all these little tedious questions that come up, and Sam has been gracious enough to forward me various meetings that you guys have had over the last month, but it's time consuming. And it would kind of be nice if I could just kind of go to like a facts page and kind of look this information up. But in the meantime, thank you for your time. I've been a 24-year resident of Washington County, Tualatin Valley Water. So I'm kind of invested in, what's going on, and would love to see more of our low-income people in our community get better assistance for low income. So thank you so much, and I heed my time.
Thank you. And we'll connect with staff and try to help you out more with some answers to your questions.
Thank you so much.
Sam, are there any others?
Not seeing any other comments this evening.
Then I will move this right along to our consent agenda. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine and may be enacted in one motion without separate discussion. Any board member may request that an item be removed by motion for discussion and separate action. Any items requested to be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion will be considered immediately after the board has approved those items which do not require discussion. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Mr. Chair, so moved.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes. Business agenda. We'll begin with Pete.
All right, good evening, President Fisher, commissioners, and folks online. So tonight, we were hoping to have our capital improvement program manager, Nick Augustus, present these topics, but unfortunately he got sick yesterday. And so he's homesick today. He's actually online listening. So thanks for joining in, Nick, and thanks for putting all this together, Nick. So actually Sarah Alton, our engineering manager, is going to present this material tonight. But I'll just give a very high level overview. So what we wanted to do is just give you an update on the in-district portion of our capital improvement program. You hear a lot about the Willamette. Obviously, that's the big spend that we've been doing for the last several years. But we've also been making a lot of progress in district on a couple of really key projects that Nick himself has been managing. So doing a great job getting those done. So Sarah can walk you through the information tonight on our CIP, and then the next agenda item will be the final report on the 189th project.
Good evening, Commissioner Fisher and the rest of the board, or President Fisher, excuse me. I'm going to do my best not to just read the slides. I met with Nick earlier today and he prepped me with what he really wanted to highlight on each slide. So as Pete mentioned, this is on our in-district CIP. So the agenda for tonight is really to kind of give you guys overview of our major accomplishments and the major project milestones that we've had so far in the 25-27 biennium, and then to answer any questions that you have about what the team has been working on. We've been really busy and we hope that it's apparent by all the work that's been done. So up in the upper corner here, you can see the breakdown of the different CIP expenditures. A bulk of that really has gone to the Willamette water supply. So our piece of the puzzle in district is about $64 million is what we are looking to spend over this biennium. The red portion of the graph is how much has been spent to date, which is just short of $13 million. And while that's only about 20% of the total budget, it's been a lot of work and a lot of progress that we've made. And it also kind of goes to show how much the team has been working on bringing down costs, looking for different ways to do things, deferring projects that can wait in support of other projects, seeking grant opportunities and things like that. So of the major projects to go over tonight, we have 189th pump station and pipeline. That's going to be a separate presentation at the end. Taylor's Ferry Reservoir and site seismic improvements. And then we're going to kind of pair a lot of the Metzger system improvements together. So that's going to be the Florence pump station and piping upgrades and the Multnomah Boulevard extension. And then we'll talk about the mains replacements. So the Todd Street and Linda Lane area main replacements, internal projects. And then we also have two other projects that Nick chose not to highlight. The Cooper Mountain Pump Station and Reservoir 3 and the Ridgewood View Surge Tank Replacement. So where Cooper Mountain is at right now is we are getting our design, scope, and fee sorted out. We'll have a contract with a consultant who's going to be starting design on that project shortly. And then the Ridgewood View surge tank replacement, that project is actually going to begin construction in a month and should be wrapped up fairly quickly after that. So Taylor's Ferry reservoirs and site seismic improvements. When Nick is not managing the CIP program, he's also managing this project, which takes up quite a lot of time. It's a very important project to the district, mostly for our seismic resilience in the Metzger area, replacing aging infrastructure, as well as this is really crucial for us to bring the Willamette water supply system into the Metzger neighborhood. So we're building a new pump station here that's going to help get the water from the lower elevations of Metzger up to the higher elevations in this neighborhood. It's also a project that has a lot of challenges. We have FEMA funding on this project, but as you all know, that FEMA has not given us great information about our funding, and so we haven't gotten those reimbursements that we've requested to date. But we did recently get our extension approved by FEMA, which was a really exciting accomplishment for Nick. It's also a very small site. You can see it's surrounded by neighbors who are very invested in the noise and the dust and the vibration impacts. And then this site's just been around for a really long time, and there is so much buried out here that we're discovering little bits every single day. The best way to find out what's out there is by digging it up, and Nick's been doing a great job of documenting everything that we found and making sure that all of our records are updated for this project. So successes to date, as of March 3rd, both of the new reservoirs, the pre-stress reservoirs, are online. And we had no outages of our system, no disruptions to our customers that were unplanned. And the majority of the pipeline work is complete. We're actually working on the north side of the site near the Florence Lane. And you can see that existing reservoir in the background, that's the old steel reservoir that's actually coming down right now. We're working through challenges with how to actually demolish that safely. We've got a contractor who's working on that. So that's going to be demolished here completely very soon, which will clear the way for us to start the pump station construction and the operations building. So to date on the FEMA, we have requested $10 million of reimbursement, and I think there's about a total of 14 million that we were going to get reimbursed for this project from FEMA. Moving on to the greater Metzger portion of the district, we covered Taylor's Ferry, and just north of Taylor's Ferry is our Florence pump station and reservoir. We're working on a project there to upgrade our electrical service, which will allow us to pump to the Taylor's Ferry site. That's also a critical piece of the puzzle to bring Willamette water supply into the Metzger portion of our district. We're finishing up the mechanical design, and we will be replacing pumps and motors coming later this fall. So that one will be ready just in time for the Willamette system integration. We are also, with that project, analyzing a lot of the ways that we can mitigate water age concerns because we are reversing some of the flow in the Metzger portion of the district. And so we're looking at that with the Florence Lane project. Project that recently completed, if you've been on Multnomah Boulevard, you probably wonder what happened out here. There's been a lot of construction. This was a partner project between us and the City of Portland Water Bureau. We did a really good job value engineering this, and we were able to work with the City of Portland to utilize a piece of 24-inch pipeline that was no longer needed for delivering water to us from Portland. And so we were able to use that to connect our system to bring Willamette water from Bradley Corner to our Garden Home Reservoir. So we have completed the construction work out there. We had a number of challenges, but we were able to ultimately be successful on that project and come in at the expected budget for that project. I kind of covered all of that on the last slide, but here are some photos of the Multnomah Boulevard construction. Again, like I said, the best way to find something out is to dig it up. And we found that out on Multnomah. We found a pipe that had asbestos covering on it. It was buried in bedrock, surrounded by utilities that weren't properly located. And so the crew out there did a really good job navigating those challenges, and we had great inspectors who made sure that everything got built to the way it was designed. There's a couple of other updates on there. I think probably you're going to get a little bit too much into the weed about Florence Lane, but if you want to ask questions about that stuff later, we can talk about that. So mains replacements, when we're not working on pump stations and reservoirs, we're out there constructing pipe almost 100% of the time, if not by TVWD crews, by an outside contractor. So we kind of think about internal mains replacements and external mains replacements. Internal would be ones that either we've designed in-house or have hired a consultant to do, and then TVWD forces are actually the ones out there installing the mains. And then external would be designed by an external consultant and then completed by an external contractor. So a big one that we are working on that's going to start construction and actually like moving dirt next week is the Todd Street and Linda Lane area main replacement. This project is one that we got community development block grant funding for from Washington County to about $725,000, which is about 40% of the total cost of that project. We'll be replacing 4,400 feet of pipe. It's neighborhood pipe. We're really supporting the fire flow improvements here, adding new fire hydrants and upgrading a neighborhood that hasn't seen any infrastructure improvements since it was built in the 50s. So this is a pretty big deal for this neighborhood to see a big investment in their area. For our crews, we have completed 7 projects in this biennium. We've installed about 3,600 feet of pipe and have spent about $1.4 million. They are out there working every day, and our customers are so satisfied with the projects that our crews do. We always hear really good feedback about them. They're actually out working right now on Murray Boulevard ahead of the county's Murray and Walker intersection project. And we have a apartment complex that we're relocating the meter for. And when I told them, this is TVWD crews working on this, not a contractor, they're going to treat it like it's your property is their property. Their fears just melted away. And it's just great to see how much our crews can make a project that is impactful, less impactful to the neighbors. Any questions on the CIP? Those are our major accomplishments so far this year. Plenty more to come.
Sarah, do you know how recently the county road maintenance district has done work in that neighborhood? Is there coordination with the country paving and the county road district?
Yeah, that's a great question. As part of the grant application for that project, I reached out to Washington County's pavement manager to ask, do you have any planned projects in this neighborhood that we could partner with or let the block grant team know about? And they do not have anything currently planned in there. I think their next project was around 2040. So hopefully that pavement holds up for a few more years for those folks, but we will be, of course, following all the county's guidelines for pavement restoration. It's usually a standard T-cut, but there are some areas where we do have to do additional paving just because of how we're approaching intersections.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner Sanders.
Yeah, your first slide was showing your budget for the 2 years, and I think if I remember hearing right, you're at about 20% spent
That's
for the
correct.
2 years. Is there going to be a big uptick in the next year? Are there going to be things that are going to, I don't want to use, I guess I'll use the word ooze into the next biennium? What's
Yeah.
the plan?
That's a really good question. So a lot of what you're seeing here is there's been a delay on some of the major projects coming out of Washington County, and they, in the past month, put 4 projects out to bid. So we have the Walker and Murray intersection project, which is going to be about $9 million worth of spending for us. That should be complete by February of next year. Those invoices do tend to lag, but we should spend a good chunk of money with that, as well as the Cooper Mountain project kicking off. But We have had some challenges in the engineering department with staff turnover and trying to bring new people on board and get them up to speed on projects. And so as a result of that, some of our spending has been delayed. Okay.
Well, I will now convene the TVWD Local Contract Review Board.
Great. So the next presentation is the 189th Pump Station and Pipeline Alternative Delivery Post-Project Evaluation. You all should have received a final report in your packets for this evening. So the intent of this presentation is really just to be a brief overview of what you can find in that report. And as I mentioned, Nick is very busy running our CIP program. He also managed this very successful project. So I want to give kudos to Nick for managing two very technically challenging projects and keeping our CIP program moving forward. So for this presentation, we are going to be talking about why did we select alternative delivery, or why would you select alternative delivery for a project? And the reason why we're doing this report is actually because of that ORS that's stated there. We need to give this final report on our findings of the alternative delivery to our local contract review board. So that's what we're here to do. We'll also go over the project background in case you've forgotten the details about it, the challenges that we addressed, and then what the results and our assessment of how successful was this partnership. So why did we consider alternative delivery for this project or for any project? Nick wanted to share, it really has to be the right project. Alternative delivery is not a perfect fit for every project, but for 189th, it really made a lot of sense to do alternative delivery. We use it when we have a challenging project where it's absolutely essential that we get the contractor's feedback early on in the design phase so that we can think through the constructability. For 189th in particular, we had a very constrained site. We had to keep all of our existing pump stations active and pumping water to the top of Cooper Mountain during construction without any interruption to our customers. So that was very important for us to get the contractor on board early to come up with a way to do that. There were also a lot of project unknowns for us on this, and Nick has another slide. Well, I'll get into that about why those were so critical for this project. We also wanted to make sure like we had some certainty of what was going to happen on our site so that our operators were engaged as well. So what was the existing infrastructure out there? Well, it all needed maintenance. It was all kind of at the end of its life. It was built in the late 1980s at the 189th pump station. We had a 2 million gallon reservoir there, which was actually at 350 feet in overflow elevation. That doesn't match what our hydraulic grade is for that zone. That's 385. So the reservoir didn't actually work for what we were trying to do in that system either. And we had a lot of recent pump failures and resilience concerns with this station in particular. We also had another pump station up the hill called the Goyak Pump Station, and that one was built in 1973, later expanded in 92. But similar to 189th, it had pump failures and other concerns. The reservoir at that site had issues with water intrusion. It didn't drain properly and had some seismic issues as well. So both sites, very small. We like to fit all of our infrastructure on postage stamps. And so that makes it difficult to work, especially when you're surrounded by residences that are well established. So what are some of the challenges that we addressed? We worked around all of our existing facilities and didn't have any impacts to those. We were able to deliver this project on a very aggressive schedule. We started actual design on this in 2023 and just finished this project in 2025. So one of the key concerns with schedule was that the pumps were failing. And one of the things that when I was talking to Nick earlier today, I was like, didn't we have a pump fail out there while we were in design? He goes, you're right, we did. We had a pump fail while we were in design on this project, and we had to get a motor on site and keep that station limping along while we were trying to actively replace it. We also still are facing supply chain issues from the COVID pandemic. And so anything that's got electrical components, that's got a very long lead time on it, some things up to like 96 weeks. And so we had to address that with this project. Both these pump stations are the only way to get water up to Cooper Mountain. And so that also increases the criticality of those. We wanted to make sure we had a lot of input into what the final product was out here and how we were able to get there. We also were working on our Kemmer intertie project at the same time. So we wanted to make sure that the schedules of those projects lined up in a way that we would be able to utilize the Kemmer Road intertie as a way to provide backup service to Cooper Mountain. We also had a very highly competitive process for this project. We went out and sought proposals from project teams and select those based on both qualifications and their cost proposal. And it was a way for us to assign risk in a way that got the contractors buy-in on making this project successful. So we first advertised this in 2022. And we got our guaranteed max price, that's the GMP agreement, on April 15th, 2024, of about $16 million. So with the GMP, we ended up with a final contract price of $15.6 million when we wrapped up and got our final invoices here in January, February timeframe, which results in a cost savings that we split between us and the contractor at 50% each of $640,000. That's what the underspend was. On the project, we also had $3 million of state funding from Business Oregon. So that was a very successful partnership with them on that state funding. So the total project cost came in at about $17 million. So this is a photo of the Goyak Reservoir as it was being demolished back in October. That site is now completely backfilled. It's reseeded, stumps are going down. It looks very nice and complete. So the project results, we mitigated supply chain issues, like I mentioned, with the electrical and the SCADA and some of the other components with our generator. We had schedule savings because we were able to get the contractor moving on earlier items that needed to be done at a certain time. So we had tree removal ahead of bird nesting season. We were able to get home inspections done prior to demolition to make sure that there was no damage to those nearby homes. So all of that helped the contractor when they actually started construction to get right to the meat of the project. And that also allowed the contractor to get out early to pothole all of our existing utilities to make sure that our design didn't conflict with anything. And that led to really good design from our consultant and our contractor. So there were some challenges, as there are with every major construction project. One of the things was that the soil needed to drain once we backfilled those existing reservoirs. So that was something that was addressed during construction. We found buried structures that we didn't know about, like old building foundations and like old pump stations that had been on the site before what we thought was the current pump station. We had tricky pipeline connections in all of the roadways, cathodic protection. Our pipeline subcontractor had some missteps with their installation on our new pipe. And so we had to work with them and with our general contractor Sladen to make sure that all of that was addressed and that the pipe did get brought into service in a way that met all of our standards. And then just always maintaining a construction schedule is going to be a challenge on a project, but we were able to meet a very aggressive schedule on this project and complete it successfully. And one of the great things about this project that's not highlighted on here is the amount of infrastructure that our operators now have to maintain is a lot less. Instead of 2 pump stations and 2 reservoirs, we have 1 pump station that does the job of both of those sites. So it's kind of a one-stop shop for us. Any questions? Thank you.
Up next is Paul Matthews with our board vacancy.
Good evening again, President Fisher and Commissioners. So I wanted to circle back and talk about the board vacancy. Current situation, as you all know, is that on February 28th, Commissioner Jim Doan resigned from position number 5 on the Board of Commissioners. That resignation, of course, was effective on the February 28th. So as a result, position number 5 is currently vacant. The board has the authority under Oregon law to fill vacancies if it chooses. Simply an act that you would take in a public meeting, like any other act that you would take. You also can frankly leave the position vacant and let the election come and fill the vacancy. That would occur in May of 27, and the position then would become, that elected position would be filled then in July of 27. Or you can appoint an official that's qualified using your procedures. So where do we stand? We had the vacancy. Commissioner Doan's resignation created that vacancy. At the March work session, we discussed this, and the board provided staff enough direction to come back with the resolution that I'll be presenting here tonight. And that resolution formalizes the vacancy and it authorizes a process that you can do to make a recommendation to the board so that you can take action. It does so by creating a subcommittee of the board that can be appointed tonight by motion. And then once all that is completed, it would bring back to the board for its action, again, in a public meeting. So there are 4 sections to the proposed resolution that was presented to you. First one declares the vacancy and essentially formally records the fact that position number 5 is vacant, and makes record of Commissioner Doan's resignation. Section 2 authorizes the board subcommittee to evaluate and recommend candidates. The 2 appointed by the board would then be authorized to do that. Section 3 directs and authorizes staff to provide the support for the process that the subcommittee would be pursuing. And then the Section 4 simply establishes an effective date so that we can commence these activities as soon as the subcommittee is prepared. So the subcommittee would develop recommendations for filling the vacant position number 5. It would do that by defining criteria, for example, on how to select the individuals to make recommendations to the board. It would structure the interview process and be responsive to those, and it would assess the candidates' capabilities to make a recommendation to the entire board. The advantage of the subcommittee is it provides greater flexibility to schedule the meetings, conduct the deliberations, and provide a more timely recommendation to the entire board. So the idea here is rather than to spell out each meeting date in the resolution, we would have a subcommittee that can make sure that process is open, fair, and transparent. So our recommendation is to adopt resolution 0926, a resolution declaring the vacancy of the Board of Commissioners and establishing a process to develop a recommendation to fill the vacancy. And then secondly, as a separate action, if you so choose to pass the resolution adopting the 0926, would be by motion. And we have a sample motion here to appoint 2 of your members to a subcommittee. One thing, the meetings, all the meetings of the subcommittee, they will be public meetings and follow all the public meeting requirements because we'll be providing a recommendation to the entire board. So with that, are there any questions? Thank you.
So seeing there's no questions, do I have a motion and a second to adopt resolution 926? A resolution declaring a vacancy on the Board of Commissioners and establishing a process to develop a recommendation to fill the vacancy.
This is Commissioner Duggan. I move, assuming that people that I volunteer are willing to do it. I move that we adopt resolution 0926 and that the board appoint our chair and vice chair to be the subcommittee to make that recommendation to fill the vacancy for board position number 5.
Do it all in one, huh? Okay.
I thought
I have no problems with volunteering for the subcommittee.
I second the motion.
Okay, well, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All oppose? The motion passes. So it will be Commissioner Sanders and myself on the subcommittee. I will now close the regular session and the board will convene an executive session. Will the district recorder please read the executive session script?
Certainly. An executive session of the board is called under ORS 192.6602H to consult with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed, and 192.6602E to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions.